What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. As you know, football is a very intense game, probably one of the most intense games on the planet. It requires tons of physical strength, stamina, and muscle endurance. With that being said, the groin is one of the most taxed areas for footballers. It's actually shown statistically that 8 to 18% of injuries in footballers have to do with the groin, the hip, and that overall pelvis region. The main reason why the groin is so heavily taxed and why there's so many injuries is because of the stop-start nature of football. There's tons of accelerations, tons of decelerations. Actually, there's about 500 to 800 accelerations and decelerations per player per game. Also, obviously, there's tons of kicking. So when you kick, that requires a lot of hip extension, which requires a lot of mobility and a lot of strength within the adductor and the hip region. The groin is one of the most common questions that I always get. They always say, Rick, I have groin pain, what do I do? Rick, my groin is hurting, do I still play? So in this video, I'm gonna break down 15 specific exercises for you to do to fully bulletproof your groin. Before we get into it, one of the most important things is, when do you do this? If you currently are struggling with a weak groin and you feel like it's almost getting injured, I would recommend doing this 3 times per week. As always, if you feel any pain during these exercises, you stop immediately and you see a local physio. When you're working with specific areas of the body, you never want to push past pain. When you're working on injury prevention, you want to make sure you're listening to your body. It's completely different than working on your explosiveness and your power. So as always, before you get into any specific exercise, you want to up the heart rate, you want to get the blood flowing, you want to get the oxygen going. Because I don't have a bike near me or because I don't have a treadmill near me, I just do a nice little osteoarticular warm up for 2 minutes, and then I'm going to get into some specific exercises to warm up the groin. Now you get the arms moving. So you do about 30 seconds of each of these movements, so 4 movements, total 2 minutes. Always breathing in and out of the nose. Now you incorporate the arms overhead. Last movement. Now you really speed it up. Now we're gonna do 5 specific exercises to warm up the region of the hips and the groin. First one we start with are called the Psoas lifts. So the psoas is a very important hip flexor, one of the longest muscles in the body. If you are overstressed, you produce a lot of cortisol, your hip flexor is naturally gonna be tight. So we wanna loosen it up with proper movement. So we do about 15 here. So you stabilize with the other leg. Lift with the main leg. Try to go into full extension here. And we go into our 3-way hip, up, out, in, 21 total reps. Really get the full range of the hip. Cool, next thing we're gonna do, might look a little funny, Instagram loves it. We're gonna work on the pelvis. So you're gonna get yourself on a wall, preferably not on a Barca flag, a little disrespectful, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So you're gonna have a slight bend in the knees, and now all we're gonna be working is the pelvis. As I say all the time on social media, we're constantly sitting, so we're in hip flexion. So that means our hips have trouble to extend. So that's why a lot of footballers have problems with hip mobility, because we're sitting so often. So what you want to do is you want to have your pelvis in the right alignment, and our goal is to almost have a neutral alignment. Since we're always sitting, we're used to more of an anterior pelvis tilt. So when we're in an anterior pelvis tilt, like these girls you see on Instagram taking these butt photos, it's not good for your hamstrings and your hip flexors. So the way we want to do that is we want to try to get that pelvis more posterior. So as you see here, you let the pelvis arch, and then you bring that arch back. Keep your head against the wall. Once you have it down, you bring the feet a little bit in, more closer. This is harder. Same exact thing. Try to touch the wall every time. So you want a nice synchronicity of the glutes with the lower back here. Good. So about 25 in each position. And then we're gonna finish up with our osteoarticular. We're gonna do some hip rotations. We start low. You can either call these windshield wipers or rotations. So the hip is a ball and socket joint. So what we wanna do is we wanna create movement in that ball and socket joint. When we have movement, we have life. And you do 20 up at the top range. So last movement before we get into our specific exercises, we're gonna work on some adductor swings. So what I want you to do is go to the front and then out, then we're gonna go to the back and then out, and then we're gonna do a full swing. So what we wanna do is we wanna cross the midline, because the adductors, what they do is they help take your leg closer to your midline. It adducts your leg. Abductors are part of your glutes because it abducts the leg. The groin and the inner thigh adducts the leg. So you actually have 5 specific adductor muscles that are considered the groin. You have the adductor longus, the adductor magnus, you have the gracilis, you have the brevis, and you have the pectineus. That's why it's such a complex area, and obviously in this pelvis region, you have a ton of things crossing over one another. So that's why we have to take a multidisciplinary approach to the way we do this. So let me stop speaking. I'm gonna cross the midline, and then we're gonna open. Cross the midline, open. Cross the midline, open. 5, then we cross the back, open. Then we do 10 total swings. Open that foot each time. Same thing on the other leg. Perfect. So now we're gonna get into some specific exercises. So what I want you to do is, if you have a foam roller, grab that. If not, you can use a football. What we're gonna do is we're gonna foam roll the adductor region. We're also gonna foam roll the hip flexors, and we're also gonna foam roll the glutes, because that's all part of the hip region and what we're working with. Foam rollers are speculated nowadays. Some say they're good, some say they're bad. As I always say, you need to do what makes you feel best, and I like to do this, all my one-on-one clients like to do this for about 30 seconds to 3 minutes before each session. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna have the foam roller close to the knee, and then you're just gonna roll up towards the groin region, towards the middle of your body, let's say. Gotta be appropriate here on YouTube. So, first exercise, foam rolling of the adductor region, 30 seconds to 3 minutes. Then we're gonna work specifically in this hip region here. We're gonna find some tight spots. If we hit a tight spot, we sit on it and we breathe. Try to get in and around the roller. So second exercise, rolling of this hip region here. Try to get all around the region. And then our last roll we're gonna do is just specifically on the glute. So what you wanna do here is you sit on the roller, You put one leg over the other and you just get into that glute. So third exercise, foam rolling of the entire glute region. Like I said, with all those exercises, one set, 30 seconds times 3 minutes, depends if you do this before training or after training. Next thing we're gonna work on is hip proprioception. Like I've talked about in our knee video, the proprioceptors of the joint are very, very important. It helps warm up the ligaments, which makes the joint more strong. So what we're gonna do is you grab yourself a lift. Unfortunately, Robert Greene, we're using the daily laws today. All we're gonna do, we're going 1 to 3 sets here for 1 minute, sake of the video. We go 1 set times 1 minute. All you're gonna do is you're gonna kneel on the book, and as a beginner, you can have your back foot on the ground. If you feel good, then what you want to do is you lift that foot off the ground, and then you're playing with your balance, your proprioception of the hip. When you feel stable, you can start to close the eyes. What you're gonna do is you're gonna use the left leg. Like I said, beginner, keep the foot on the ground. More advanced, keep the foot off the ground. So for the next exercise, for our last stretch of the day, before we get into the actual exercises, we're gonna work on an activation of the glute, which is gonna help this hip open up. So what you wanna do is you wanna drive the big toe into the ground, you wanna drive the knee into the ground, and you wanna remain upright. You don't wanna dump your body fully forward. You wanna stay upright in a nice strong spine, and you just wanna activate the glute. So the way you do that is you drive the toes into the ground, you drive the knee into the ground, which is gonna open up this hip flexor. What you want to do for that is about 1 to 2 sets of about 10 to 15 reps where you're squeezing that glute. Obviously, we're going to switch legs here. Same exact thing, toes driven into the ground. If you can't activate the glute, what you can do is you hit that glute to turn it on, and that'll create a much easier way to get that mind-muscle connection. So next thing we're gonna be working on the 7th exercise, we're gonna work on an adductor longus strengthening exercise. So you're gonna lay yourself on the ground, you're gonna open up the leg that you're working, and what you wanna do is you wanna take that leg across and back down. You wanna take that leg across and back down. So as you see, you have a nice slight knee bend, take that leg across and back down. So it's almost a kicking motion. Same exact thing, other side. You wanna make sure that low back remains on the floor the entire time. The abs are tight. You should be feeling it all along here. So for that specific exercise, you're gonna be working for about 1 to 3 sets of about 10 to 50 reps. So the next thing we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be working an isometric. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go into position that you've probably seen before. A lot of people do this stretch. What we like to do is we like to strengthen in the positions that we also stretch in. So we're gonna go into the commonly known frog position. The knees are gonna be about shoulder width. The feet are also gonna be in line. They're not gonna be too far out. They're not gonna be too far in. There's multiple positions we can work with. We're first working with this neutral position. And then what you wanna do is you wanna do a couple glides. So you wanna glide back and forth to really try to own this position here. I would recommend 5 glides Very slow, really gentle on the adductors there. So this is working the more proximal part of the adductors, which means closer to the center, so closer to your actual midline. Once you have done those rocks, you're in the position, you can get yourself a timer or a stopwatch. What you're gonna do is you're gonna slowly squeeze those knees together, a slight isometric. So what that means, an isometric, is there's no lengthening, there's no shortening of the tissue, it just stays still. So what we wanna do when we're ready is we squeeze those knees together and we release. We squeeze those knees together and we release. We squeeze those knees together and we release. Squeeze them together, release. Each contraction is about 2 to 3 seconds. Squeeze, release. So for that one, you want to be very careful. If you feel pain, you stop immediately. We go for 1 to 3 sets of about 5 to 30 reps of those contractions and those squeezes. Build yourself up. So the next exercise we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be strengthening the glute medius. Glute medius is very important for the management of the pelvis. We've talked about this multiple times in other videos. It's one of the most important exercises that you need to be doing all the time. We're gonna show you the 3-position glute medius raise. So first position we're gonna work at is directly over the bent leg. So you're gonna lie on your side, you're gonna rest yourself on your hand, and all you're turning your toe down, so your big toe is towards the floor, the heel is up, and then you're just gonna be working your raises. For the sake of the video, I'm gonna be going 10 reps, but you should be able to build up to 100 reps. Start between 30 to 40, build up to 50, and keep those numbers going up. If you're consistent with this exercise, you will get stronger quickly. So, that was the first position. Second position is over the arch of the foot. Same exact thing, toe turned down, hip is rotated inwards, heel is towards the sky, and we're doing our lifts. Same thing, parallel, completely parallel. So obviously you're gonna work the other leg, same exact form. First position directly over the leg, toe pointed down, heel pointed up, lying on the side. Now over the arch of the foot. And then the last position here. So like I said, for that 1 to 3 sets, you want to build up to 100 reps. You start slowly, 20 to 30 reps, 30 to 40 reps, 50 to 60, and you build up to 100. So quick fun fact, I don't know if you know, I actually got sports hernia surgery in 2021. I think the main reason that I got this is because I wasn't educated enough on the specific training for the specific muscles. I've been playing football for about 25 years of my life. I'm 29 now, started playing at 4. Like I said in the beginning, with the constant stop-start nature and the constant swinging of the leg, and I was always known as having a good long ball, having a good strike. I wouldn't do enough stretching, like I told you in the long ball video. I wouldn't do enough stretching, wouldn't do enough strengthening, but I would be doing a lot of repetitions with technique on the ball. So that's why with RicFit, we have a holistic approach. What you're doing on the field, we make sure to do at our home and in the gym to supplement that, because both roads gotta meet. You gotta have the technique, you gotta have the physicality, you gotta have the mental, you gotta have the tactical. That's why it's so hard to become a professional footballer. But if you focus on all these things and you build that holistic approach like we do at RicFit, you have that best chance possible. And that's what I'm trying to do for you. So basically, like we always say in the strength and conditioning industry, compound movements are very, very important. But isolated movements, I've actually changed my stance on this, isolated movements specific for the muscles that you're working, especially as a footballer, the ankles, the knees, the hips, the groin, all this stuff that's commonly used, you gotta isolate specific muscles. Whether we're working on the ankles, we gotta isolate the soleus, we gotta isolate the gracilis. Whether we're working on the knees, we gotta isolate the specific muscles around the quadricep. When we're working on the groin, we gotta work on the adductors. All of it ties in. You have to do the isolated accessory work as well. And as you get older, as I'm sure you've seen from a lot of Matt Sheldon's videos, your goal is to actually maintain. You want to maintain. You're not actually looking to increase your performance by a whole lot because at this age, you can't really advance as much. So your goal is to maintain, and your most important thing is that you're on the field getting experience for the game and being a leader for your team. Without further ado, let's get into the next exercise. So the next exercise we're gonna go into is hip airplanes. So what you wanna do is you can either work with 2 barbells if you're in a gym, or you can work with a door hinge, which is quite easy. This is gonna work on the separation and the rotation of the hips. A lot of footballers, our hips are stuck and tight together because, like I told you, we're constantly sitting, we have these repetitive movements, so over time it builds up this stickiness. So what we wanna do is we balance on one leg, we have this other leg straight, and all we're gonna do is rotate the hip. Rotate the hip. So for this one, we go about 1 to 3 sets of about 8 to 10 reps. You can also include this in your warm-up. So as you see, I'm kind of twisting from the opposite glute to allow that hip to rotate. So next exercise we're gonna go into, similar to the other frog position, but we're gonna put the feet narrow. So that's gonna hit a different part of the adductor. So same exact thing, down in that frog position. What you wanna do is you wanna get those feet as narrow and close together as possible. Get on your elbows, and then you're gonna do the same glides to get in. So 5 to 10 glides, get yourself mobile. So those feet are narrow, and we're gonna do the same exact isometric position. Like I said, 2 to 3 seconds of a squeeze where you bring those knees in, and then you let them go. Squeeze, let go. Squeeze, let go. Squeeze, let go. So sets and reps for that, same exact thing like before, 1 to 3 sets, depending on what level you're at, depending on severity of your injury, depending on playing experience, depending on where you are in season. That's why you need to hire an individual coach. You go for about 1 to 4 sets of about 10 to 30 contractions, or 5 to 30 contractions. So like I said, each contraction, squeeze of the legs, is 2 to 3 seconds. It's that quick isometric, boom. So last exercise before we get into our stretches, we're working psoas lifts. So what we wanna do here is we wanna remain nice and tall in the spine. You wanna externally rotate the hands, and then all we're gonna do is we're gonna lift the knee towards the chest. Sake of the video, doing 10. Overall, I would recommend about 10 to 30 reps for about 1 to 3 sets. So after we do our strength work, naturally we have to stretch. You have to stretch the muscles that you work. So first stretch we're gonna work is we're gonna work the adductor longus. So what you wanna do is you wanna have that leg slightly turned in, and then what your goal is, you're trying to bring this knee to that opposite heel. So when you're doing that, you can twist slightly over this leg. You use your arm. You should feel it nicely in the corner here. Breathe in and out through the nose. So next stretch we're gonna do is we're gonna work the gracilis. So the gracilis is that stringy muscle that runs along the inner thigh. What we're gonna do You're gonna have that leg as far out as possible. Don't overstrain it. Heel in line with the knee. And then what we're gonna do is you're gonna have our hands on the ground. We can do a couple positions. You can start here for 30 seconds. And then once you're ready, you try to lift that. You try to pull the toes towards the face and you lengthen through the gracilis, the stringy part of the adductor. Like I said, you start with the foot on the ground for about 30 seconds. Then you open it. In the last stretch of the day, we're gonna be working the Pectineus. So, what you wanna do here is you wanna line your foot almost couple lengths, not too far, in front of the knee. And then what you're trying to do is you're trying to drive this knee outwards. You want this foot to remain forwards the whole time. And then if you're a beginner, you start here, hand on the knee, and then you're trying to bring this knee towards that heel. And once again, you should feel it in this pocket region there. So naturally you switch legs, 3 sets of 30 seconds each leg, same exact technique. So that's a wrap. With those static stretches, like I said, 3 sets of 30 seconds. With the myofascial specific stretches, I like to go the first stretch 50 to 60%, second stretch 70 to 80%, and the last stretch 90 to 100%. Like I said, you feel any pain with that, you stop it immediately. When you're doing static stretching, this should always be done when you're very warm, after you do a strength training like this, after an individual training, or after a team training. Never static stretch when you're cold, otherwise you're gonna injure yourself. It's the recipe for injury. And if you do this stuff before training, you can if you're well warm, but make sure you get a really, really good activation if you do static stretches, you know, couple hours before, or even, 30, 60 minutes before. You can do it. It's a bit riskier. If you feel tighter in the region, you can do it. I have some one-on-one clients do it, but I don't highly recommend it. So if it's a very tender, tense area, yeah, you could loosen it, you could do some light stretching, but make sure you get a good activation. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. I personally think this is the most in-depth groin video on YouTube. I learned this from some of the best people in the physiotherapy game. I learned this from a specific osteopath named Guy Voyer. He's worked with some of the top clubs, used to work at Olympic Marseille. He's probably the best guy that I've seen in physical training, probably in the world. People travel all over the world to see him. He's a top guy. I've learned through a lot of his instructors, and I credit him with a lot of this knowledge. So your boy Ricky gives tons of free value. I've given you all this free value. It's probably cost me thousands of dollars to learn it, but I'm giving it to you for free because my ultimate goal is to bring you football education for the most affordable price possible. I know groin injuries are very common. Knee injuries are also very common. I don't know if you saw, but I just made a knee injury video. You could check it out right here. And then I'm gonna give you another massive free gift. You could go below to the link in the description and you could get access to my How to Become a Pro Masterclass. In that Masterclass, I give you 5 days of $1,500 worth of value for free. In day 1, I give you a specific gym program to improve your strength and power on the pitch, $600 worth of value. Day 2, I give you a specific nutrition video where I talk about 10 RicFit foundational rules. I also give you a free fat loss guide. Day 3, I bring my guy Sohail Var on. He gives you 3 pro tips on how to maintain your pro status or sign your first pro contract. I also give you 72 free crusher workouts within that video. You can do those workouts anywhere. Day 4, I introduce you to the best football development tool on the planet that you could get access to for free. And I also give you a 14-day free ball mastery program, $200 worth of value. And finally, in day 5, we talked about how to specifically plan your gym program as a footballer. And the last free gift is an 8-week bodyweight program, $199 worth of value for free. Hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure you click one of these 2 videos right here to stay up to date with the best football development channel here on YouTube. And most importantly, don't forget to drink your sparkling water. Deuces.